roughly 7 kilometres or 4.352 miles long and contains a total of 92.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to RTG TV for the 7th round of Burnt Rubber Racing Season 1, exclusively on RTG TV for this first season. We're here in Belgium at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, the longest circuit on the F1 calendar. And as you can see, the heavens are opened in the Ardennes forest in the heart of Belgium. This circuit's got 2 DRS zones, 20 corners. It's 7.001 kilometres and 4.349 miles in length. We're going to have 22 laps to race around this circuit. The compounds we'll be using today are the C4 softs, C3 mediums and C2 hard tyre. So, standings. RTG Chuck is leading the way. He's on 138 points. There's a big gap to Bo, who's in second on 89. 62 points for Super Striker, 51 points for Jundy Sunday, and 59 points for Chuckle. The Williams duo, you can see at the top of the screen at the moment, are leading the Constructors' Championship. They're on 144 points, 113 points for Mercedes, and 101 points for Ferrari. They're 43 points behind the leaders as it stands. At the moment, it's looking like it's going to be intermediate tyres in this session with the weather conditions that we have so far. If you just bear with me a second, I'm just going to get the second screen up that I need, which is there. Brilliant. And we'll go back to that. We'll go to the qualifying stats and we'll also have a look at those whilst we're in qualifying. So Chuckle taking 2 poles this season. Chuck is taking another, and Mark Bowe is taking another of the full-time drivers. There have been more pole positions, of course, as we're into round 7. There's been 6 of them in total, but a couple have been done by reserve drivers. One of them being Paul Jones, who was here last week in the McLaren. So that's why that stat is not up from last week. So we've got drivers out on their outlaps. As I said, it is a rainy afternoon here in Spa. We're on board with Little Majin going through No Name Corner, turn 11 after excellent lavage, and now down the hill towards Pouan Corner, of course, turn 12, which is going to be quite tricky in these conditions. And who's going to be the first driver to start a lap, because we'll stay with them for the entirety of their lap. And I think it's going to be Steve O'Markey as he makes his way down into turn 1 of Les Sources. And usually in dry conditions will be flat to the floor all the way out of Les Sources, all the way down the hill here into the compression zone of Eau Rouge before we go up into Radion and then along the Camel Straight into Les Combes, where it would be the first time we're touching the brake pedal. We may not touch the brake pedal in these conditions, but we certainly will not have full throttle all the way down this straight. As we're watching Steve-O now coming into the end of the first sector. It's actually Jay-Z who started the first lap, and he's a little bit further along. We'll stay with him and then we'll cut back to Steve-O after that as he goes around No Name Corner now. We're talking about Jay-Z as he now makes his way through Pouan Corner. Back to the left-hand side for the Campos chicane before getting into Stavolo 1 and Stavolo 2, which are the Stavolo 1 being the final corner of Sector 2 before we get into the final sector, which is pretty much all flat out until we get to the bus stop chicane at the end of this straight as we now exit the second part of Stavolo. Is he going to have a bit of a tow here from the Red Bull ahead of him? That Red Bull being Chuckle just up ahead of him through Blanchimont now as we go over to the left-hand side to judge our braking zone for the bus stop chicane, which I think he may have just overshot it there as he now exits and has that Red Bull of Chuckle just ahead of him, who is just starting a lap as you see Jay-Z finish a lap into 1:56 as of right now. And Steve-O now coming into the bus stop. There was Pro Live ahead as well, so I judged that horribly wrong, as well as Matthew as well. Matthew now sitting on provisional pole. We did have a pole time from previous iterations that I've commentated on, but obviously that's going to be useless today because it is a dry qualifying stat. So as I said, it's going to be useless for today's events. As Ben T. Smith now crosses the line in the start-finish straight, becoming quite busy with drivers completing their laps. The next one up is Super Striker. He goes on to the front row. And then we've got the Red Bull of Bish after that. He goes on to provisional pole. A very good time from him. The Haas of Morph is just about to start a lap, and he's got Bootneck just behind him. And he goes 7th fastest with a 57.5. The Merc of Markbo just starting a lap there as he goes into Lasers with his very brightly coloured helmet. He stands out like a sore thumb in that black Mercedes. Who is the next car up? I believe it's going to be his teammate Murph as he exits the second part of Stavelo and down towards Blanchimont corner. Very, very quick track, even in wet conditions. I do thank everyone for trying to put their names up. I think this might be, we're one short. We almost had a full house of drivers, and it is Morph anyway. The name's already on there. It's Morph anyway, so that's great. I don't have to sort those out. Thank you very much for everyone putting their IDs on. Makes it so much easier for me as Murph goes 7th fastest, and Chuck goes on provisional pole here, and he sets the fastest final sector as Chuck goes on the front row with him, and just behind by just over a tenth our championship leader. Oh, hi Lee. First of all, watching, I believe, are you on holiday in Ventura? I'm assuming so. Well, thank you for joining us anyway. Hopefully it'll be a good one. As you can see, the heavens have opened over the Spa circuit, so it makes for an interesting qualifying session. I wonder if we'll have a dry session later on for the race. Hello David as well, nice to see you. As we go into the final corner of turn 20 out of the bus stop, here comes Morph to the line. What's he going to produce? It's a time quick enough for 6th fastest. It's a 1:55.272 as Little Majin in the other Williams goes 4th fastest. At the moment it's Red Bull Williams who are sharing the first 2 rows on the grid. Here comes Liam Esk up the hill through Eau Rouge and Radion, and now down the Kemmel Straight. Hits the first beacon of sector 1. Of course, it's a personal best for him as he goes through the Les Combes chicane and down to Ravage corner, or Brussels, whichever you want to call it. It's got two names. The next corner's only got one name, which technically isn't a name. No Name corner, as we see Liam now making his way through No Name corner. This man loves to play his golf throughout the week. He's had a very busy week last week during the Masters. And if he can get a hole in one on this lap and put in a decent lap time, probably thinks he's got a swing like Tiger Woods as well, but he probably doesn't, as Chuck goes on to provisional pole with a 1:53.141. I say goes on provisional pole. Sorry, yes, he does go on to provisional pole, as Matthew now goes alongside him as the track is starting to get a little bit quicker. And Bish setting the fastest middle sector at the moment as Jay-Z crosses the line there, and he goes 5th fastest as well. We'll go back to Liam, Paul Jones, who's just coming into the picture, said got the pole last week, reserving. Hi John, welcome. As we see Liam make his way into that bus stop chicane. How good is this going to be? Has he chipped it onto the green? Is it gone all the way into the hole, or is it a bit of a miss? It's a little bit of a miss, but he's alongside his Alpine teammate. Only for but a second, is now down in 7th place, with Morph splitting the 2 of those. As we get always grinding now, the American in the Scuderia. I don't think we've had an American in the Ferrari since Phil Hill in the late 1950s. Of course, one of a very select few world champions, and even more select few of American world champions. I only think there's 2 or 3, obviously Mario Andretti being the most famous of them, but of course he was born in Italy, moved over to the States when he was just a little one running around in his small shorts. But yeah, Phil Hill, I think the last driver, American driver, to be in the red overalls, is always grinding, now crosses the line. He goes 11th fastest at 154.944, just alongside his British teammate, who also, we haven't seen a British driver in a Ferrari since Nigel Mansell in the late 80s, until next year in 2024, where we'll have the the greatest of all time, Lewis Hamilton, taking that second Ferrari seat alongside Charles Leclerc for next season. But who is going to take that second Mercedes seat alongside George Russell next year? Of course, Kimi Antonelli being one of those drivers who have been hyped up to take that seat. Maybe a little bit too big a responsibility for the young lad, obviously going from Formula Alpine, or Formula Renault as it used to be called, up to Formula 2, skipping a couple of formulas and going straight up. Is he going to go straight up into Formula 1 next year? Or are we going to see someone like Carlos Sainz, which there are rumours about him moving to Mercedes? So basically a straight swap between Ferrari and Mercedes next year. Or someone I'd probably like to see in that car next year, someone like Alex Albon, who I think deserves to be up in a top team again after his fantastic performances the last couple of years in the Williams. But of course there's some others as well who could be on that short list as well. Of course, Sebastian Vettel may come out of retirement to take that Mercedes seat. Unlikely, don't think that will happen, but it may happen. Not too many others, I think, could potentially take that seat. Danny Rick, maybe, but he's not doing very well. Of course, got to keep an eye on people like Liam Lawson as well. Those are others. Alex Palou from IndyCar, that'd be another one to keep an eye out of for next year in Formula 1. Pato Award, there's another one from IndyCar. I think some of the IndyCar drivers are really underrated and could be in with a chance of a Formula 1 seat in the next couple of years. And of course, we've got others from Formula 2 as well. We've got like Felipe Drogovic, who's the reserve driver for this team. As John's saying, he thinks Max may swap and go to Mercedes, and I'm assuming because of all the hoo-ha with Sebastian Vettel at the moment. As Chuckle has just finished a lap, or has he just started one? No, he's just started one, and we're getting into the final 5 minutes of qualifying here, but it's more likely to be around 6 to 7 minutes, obviously, because they can finish their lap once the checkered flag comes out, as long as they cross the line before the checkered flag comes out. And that track is certainly getting quicker and getting drier as well, as it's a 152.392 for Bish. Sorry guys, bear with me just one sec. So, it is now going to start to get hard to keep track of, as we've got all 17 drivers out on the circuit now, trying to make the best of a bad situation in terms of conditions, sorry. But of course the conditions are getting better, so maybe trying to make the best of a bad situation, but that bad situation is getting slightly better as it stands, as you see Paul Jones, our pole sitter from last week in Interlagos, Brazil, going down into Lake Com, and he is set a purple, set to un. Yeah, so John, I think that's probably the most likely. I think if I had to bet, I think it would be Carlos Sainz or Alex Albon that might take that Mercedes seat next year. I think of my third choice would be Kimi Antonelli, but I think Kimi would have to have the absolutely best, most incredible season we've seen for a long time in Formula 2, to have an opportunity to step up in one of those big top three teams. Obviously Mercedes lacking a little bit this year especially, and in the last couple of years, but no one can write them out of being a top team, obviously with their facilities and things. But that would be me. I think Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon, and then Kimi Antonelli are really their main three choices I think they'll go for. An outside wild card, I'll put Sebastian Vettel in there as well, but I don't think that could happen. Let's get Nico Rosberg back in that Mercedes for a year or two. He's still young enough, but he's been out for a little while. Never used to like Nico Rosberg, though, being a massive Lewis Hamilton fan back in those years between 13 and 16. As Paul Jones, like he did last week, gets himself onto provisional pole. Is he going to stay there? Not for long, as Matthew now takes that provisional pole position in the Papaya McLaren. And who's up next to finish a lap is the important question. Now, don't believe Steve-O. Is Steve-O on a lap? I think he might be, actually. As he now comes around, he certainly is, but he's low on the old battery into the bus stop chicane for the AlphaTauri driver around the final corner. Put foot flat to the floor. Hope he's got a little bit of battery to push him along for the final bit of to the line. And he does move up a place. He was 6/10 up, and he gets himself up into the top 8 as Chuck now takes provisional pole. And as I said, those times getting quicker and quicker. Is Chuck going to go for another lap, one after the other? He's got enough battery to do that, but and it's his only chance to do that as well. As Super Striker, I believe, he's just set a lap there. So is Liam, and he moves up into 9th place. Who is the next car up? I think it's going to be Jay-Z. But he's going slowly, which means he's prepping a lap. Yeah, Frederick Vesti, heard about him as well. Obviously, he's a Mercedes Junior as well. Another good call, actually, another good shout. But yeah, Alex Albon, Carlos Sainz, those are my two, I think, realistically, who are going to get the seat. Preferably, I think I'd rather have Alex in the seat. I think he deserves it. I think he deserves another opportunity. He kind of got chewed up and spat out by Red Bull. And I think the difference in performance between him and Sergio Perez actually hasn't been that great. They've just obviously decided to stick with Sergio Perez. As we've got 10 seconds left on the clock, as Ben T. Smith off of the line with just enough time to start a final approach. Is always grinding as well. He starts his final attempt as well as he makes his way down into Les Sources. And the checker flag is now out, and who is the first driver up? It's going to be our provisional pole sitter Chuck, who looks like he's going to extend that pole position, or provisional pole. He certainly does. He now goes to a 151.130, and we're now waiting for the other Ferrari of Super Striker. He stays 4th fastest. And who is the driver up next? It is a Merc. It is Mark Bowe, and he goes into 4th place. He won't be starting any higher than that, as Bootneck has already seen the checker flag. We now wait for the next car, being Pro Life, and he is invalidated his time. And who is the next one up after that? It would be Little Majin, but he decides to bail out and dive into the pit lane. Jay-Z, the next car up. And then the other Merc behind him, which is Murph. And Murph is on a flying lap as we see Jay-Z make his way around the last 2 corners of 19 and 20. Of course, the famous bus stop chicane, which isn't a bus stop chicane anymore, but kept its name. He moves up a place. He was over 5/10 up on his lap. It just shows how much quicker the track has got. We've just seen the other Mercedes cross the line. Is Matthew going to go onto pole? He's on provisional pole. And who is the next car up? It is Bish. He gets onto the 2nd row. And who else are we waiting for? Paul Jones would have been one, but he backs out as Ben T. Smith crosses the line. He goes 10th fastest. As we wait for the American of Always Grinding, he goes up into 8th. It's a Mercedes 5.6. It's a Ferrari 7.8 at the end of qualifying. And that is the end of your qualifying for today's race in Spa. And Matthew in the McLaren is on pole with Chuck, our championship leader, alongside him, going down into Les Sources. And just so you guys know, we've had Ross Northover join late, so we've got 2 Hasses this evening, 18 drivers, and Ross will be starting on that 9th and back row. So, as I said, that concludes our qualifying session for today's 22-lap race in Spa, and Matthew will be leading us away for those 22 laps. Chuck is in 2nd, Paul Jones is 3rd, Bish is 4th, 5th is Mark Bowe, Murph is 6th, 7th is Super Striker, 8th is Always Grinding, Chuckle 9th, Little Majin rounds out the top 10, Ben T. Smith is 11th, Morph is 12th, Liam is 13th, 14th is Steve-O, Jay-Z's 15th, 16th is Bootneck, 17th is Pro Live, and Bootneck, who joined us late, will be 18th and last. So it's looking like we're having the same conditions for the race as we are for qualifying. Of course, this is a track where, or an area in the world where we can see conditions change so much. Of course, not too far geographically, really, from the UK. Obviously, got the English Channel between us and Belgium and France and the Netherlands, that kind of area. But really, geographically, they kind of get the exact same weather as we do here in the UK, where you can have all 4 seasons in one day. So we have seen that many times in the past. It's Spa, real life, in game. We've seen it so much. So it could be a good chance for mixed conditions here today. And I would probably guess that could well happen. There's a good chance for that happening. Obviously, the track did improve towards the end of that qualifying session. Technically, in terms of race, in terms of this lobby and things, technically we'd be into the next day now. Like, obviously, qualifying's on Saturday, and then we have racing on Sunday. So this is technically a new day in terms of games. So the weather could change. It could be worse than what it was a minute ago in qualifying. We don't know. We'll find out. One thing I find interesting, when you look down at the Red Bull garage here in the bottom right corner of your screen, where it says Bish's his name and car number, you see 4 intermediate tyres there that are just out. No tyre blankets, no nothing. Red Bull deciding that those tyres don't need any blankets. I think that's just a little bit of an error from the game creators. I was thinking of manufacturers. I suppose that's correct. So, as I said, 22 laps to race around here. The shortest amount of laps on the F1 calendar, of course, being a full race distance, would be 44, like you're used to when you watch this race at the start of September. In real life, of course, we didn't have race distance other than that. So it's 22 laps from here on out. And just remember, I know you're obviously used to not having formation laps on RTG TV, but just remember that in rubber racing we do have formation laps. So, and here it is, as we see those lights now go out, and we get set to see what everyone's decided on tyres, and everyone's gone the same way. Of course, a green banded intermediate tyre. It's a no-brainer. It'll give you recommended tyre for the conditions. It's just interesting to know if we're going to stay pretty much the same, stay on this green banded tyre for the foreseeable or the entirety, or are we going to see it for the foreseeable and potentially go a step up onto extreme wet. Of course, a full wet tyre, the blue banded tyre, will start to dry out and potentially see some soft, medium, hard, slick compound tyres later on in the race. My app tells me what we're looking like in terms of tyres, that kind of thing. It tells us what the weather is at the very moment, but I don't know what's happening later on, unfortunately. So we'll see. Just remember, guys, if you're keen avid viewers of the channel, which I know some of you are, make sure to be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, not 8:30, for RTG's GP2 event, which of course has been a very, very close title fight all the way through. It's starting to extend, but still very good. Of course, Mondays has been great as well. Lee's been taking charge of the second half of that season. I took charge of the first half, and have moved on to doing another league of Red Hour Racing on a Monday night for the foreseeable future for Liam. As you can see, he's racing tonight, one of the Alpine drivers. But yeah, Josh McGill, I know, even though I've not been commentating, been keeping an eye in, keeping an ear out, and he's pretty much wrapped up season 15 on the first tier, in the top tier of RTG Racing. So Matthew now just coming around the final two corners, has set himself up on the line. May attempt some burnouts here and get the rear tyres up to temperature, which he certainly does. He's just obviously slowing down and putting full throttle down to get those tyres lined up, get the tyres heated up, and then get himself lined up in the box. He's put himself at a bit of an angle there as well, that's for sure. As we wait for Ross Northover to get to the back, as he's actually being held up by ProLive, who was deciding where his grid spot was. Ross Northover going to the back now. Matthew on pole position, Chuck alongside him. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 red lights, and we're away here in Belgium for the 7th round of the season of Burnt Rubber Racing. And Matthew gets a good launch here, and so does Chuck. He gets alongside him into Les Sources, trying to go around the outside at turn 1 as Matthew gets a bit out of shape there and was a little bit quick to get on the throttle pedal. These two are now going to go almost side by side as now Chuck decides to back out and tuck behind as we go up on Rouge and through Radion, and seemingly everyone getting through that with no trouble at all. His Morph is alongside Stevo here, going down the back straight, and the Alpine of Liam now trying to go the long way round on all the others as he tries to brake right later than the rest, and he moves up into 12th place and just behind his teammate Ben T. Smith. To move further up, Bish very, very close to the back of Paul Jones as we go through No Name Corner. Chuckle moved up and around the outside at No Name Corner. That's a tall feat and a tall order which he's got done, especially in these conditions as well, as the two Ferraris squabble for position and Super Striker wanting that 8th place. And we now conclude Fillon Corner and in to the chicane of Campos before we get to 15 and 16 of the Stavolo 1 and Stavolo 2 corners. And people just tiptoeing around almost, just trying to feel the conditions underneath them. Obviously, it's a bit of an exploratory lap, this first lap. Conditions different from what they were a minute ago in qualifying. As we see two more teammates squabbling for position, and Mark Bowe getting past Murph, as Murph has got Chuckle bearing down on him here, as Ross Northover has moved up a few places already in this first lap. He's moved from 18th to 15th, or has he, as Stevo here trying to go the long way round on Ross Northover and Jay-Z, and he's got them both in one corner. Fabulous overtaking from him there, and Jay-Z's lost a couple of places. Ross Northover, however, isn't going to want to concede that place for too long. He's trying to go the long way round, but then sees that Jay-Z's up his inside and has to give him room as he's forced his hand and made him give him the space. As now we might see these two go side by side up Eau Rouge and Radion. No, we do not. And Chuckle now getting past Murph. Sparks flying out of the back of that Red Bull. Very, very low to the ground. A fantastic move from Steve-O already in this race. We go through No Name Corner with the top three, should I say, all within 1 second. But of course, no DRS in these conditions. If the weather gets better, of course, we should see that later on. We do see it sometimes in damp conditions, but not always. Again, this is almost another lap of just tiptoeing around, trying to find where the grip is. As we see Mark Bowe there gets so close to that wall on the outside of Stavolo 2. Oh, I've just realised, sorry guys, bear with me a sec. I've got a couple of issues, bear with me a sec. That's all good. Don't worry, sorry, my controller was charging, then it wasn't charging, then it turned off. I needed to put my tablet on charge, which I've now done. Now I'm back with it. Sorry about that. Chuckle now getting very, very close. I do apologise. I've had my own voice in the background from the stream, which I have on in front of me as well, so I'll turn that down now as well. Apologies if anyone could hear that in qualifying. So, Liam, under threat, looking in his mirrors left and right, wondering where Morph is going to go. He's going to go to his right-hand side and try and dictate the line on the inside and go up the inside, which he has done. But then Liam, being very smart and a wise old fox that he is, gets the switchback and is staying with him and going to try and take back that 12th place as they go around Brussels corner, Ravage, and then into No Name. They're still sticking together. It's symmetry in motion, ladies and gentlemen. But now Morph has got up into 12th place, and Liam has to concede for the meantime. Matthew still looking very close out in front, looking very comfortable, out in front, not very close, very comfortable out in front, but not been able to extend an advantage as Ben T. Smith and Little Majin go through Stavolo 2 side by side. Now down towards Beau Rivage as Ben T. Smith is now in 10th place and got that Ferrari ahead of him, which he's hopefully going to try and close the gap and let that Ferrari get a little bit, hopefully get closer to that Ferrari, should I say. But he is thinking about a move. Whilst the move is going on, so thinking about a move, there's a move going on at Les Source between Mark Bowe and Bish. This is certainly seeming like it's going to be a drag race down towards Eau Rouge and Radion. They're still side by side. Is either of them going to give up here? They certainly aren't. And Mark Bowe had to give up in the end as Bish decided to be a little bit more committed. And here comes Chuck getting closer and closer to Matthew as Mark Bowe now getting past Bish, and now Bish being overtaken by Chuckle as well as Chuckle now slots in between that Merc and Red Bull. This battle at the front is certainly already turned into a three-way fight. It's already on lap 4. And whilst that's going on, you can see that Morph and Steve-O have been switching places as well. As Always Grinding gets himself a 3-second time penalty. Got a few penalties so far already. Steve-O having 6 seconds of time penalties already. Always Grinding as well. He's got 3 seconds. Like I was saying before, Mark Boat can see the top 3, but they're definitely a lot smaller than he would like in the distance. He has gained some time. Is Steve-O getting past Bish, and then the top 3 actually switching places somewhat, and that's between second and third. As Paul now gets himself up into second place. Of course, Paul won last week as well as a reserve. Seeing a battle ensue at the moment between Ben T. Smith and Always Grinding. Just so you know, if I am going a little bit quiet sometimes, or I feel a little bit bunged up, I have got a bit of hay fever at the moment, so suffering with that a little bit. We're going to try and carry on and get through it. But if I am quiet for a moment or two, it's because I'm blowing my nose, basically. Horrible time of the year for hay fever sufferers. And the rain has stopped. So when I said about mixed conditions, it's certainly possible. And we could already be within a shout of seeing dry tyres. Of course, the big telltale sign where the dry tyres are the tyre to go on is when we see the DRS enabled by race control. They then believe that the safety car, or should we say the game really believes that the safety car that the weather is good enough for dry tyres, and that's usually the call. Are we going to see anyone come in on this lap? Of course, the problem with being here is Matthew is now 1.5 seconds in the lead, and somewhat gained a healthy margin to the next car as ProLife gets himself a 3-second time penalty. And I believe that's his second one of the evening as well. It certainly is. And we've seen quite a few. Paul Jones being the first and Matthew staying out for another lap. Of course, the problem here is, which I think some of the drivers have already figured out, it's a long track here. It's the longest on the F1 calendar. If it gets dry halfway through the lap, you've still got a long, long way to go. As Steve-O stays out again for another lap, I feel like Matthew may have made the wrong call here. We haven't had DRS enabled just yet, and if we have, I apologise. I haven't seen it come up on our screens. It's still slightly damp, but I think these guys are hoping that it will dry up in this lap, in the next minute or two, and that will mean Matthew will become a sitting duck, and it will be very, very slow in the final sector and a half as he makes his way around No Name Corner now. The one thing I will say, though, with everyone pretty much being in the same boat, but in terms of they've all gone on to dry tyres now, pretty much, bar a couple, Murph being one, 3 to be precise, and surely they'll come in on this lap. I'm not sure if Matthew's actually lost too much time. I think the only time he'll actually lose is in this last sector, and obviously the place where he will lose it the most is this last corner, but he should keep to the right hand side and dive into the pits, which he has done. Very tight pit lane here as well. He's got to be on it into the pits because every second counts at this point. And what tyre is Matthew going to go on to? The mediums, thinking they will go to the very end. And I'm sure he's going to be overtaken by Paul Jones and Chuckle. Paul Jones, though, I think maybe a little bit too conservative by going for the hard tyre. There is Matthew, actually. He's called it beautifully, stayed out that one extra lap and actually got the overcut on everyone else and didn't go with the consensus of the grid in pitting on lap 6. And here goes Chuck getting past Paul Jones. And Chuckle in a very good spot as well. Chuckle up 5 places since the start of the race. Of course, Matthew and Chuck back in their original positions when the lights went out. So Matthew made a good call, but of course, the first half of the lap, he's going to have cold tyres, which is how Chuck has been able to gain so much ground in those few corners. Almost within a second already. I still haven't seen a call for DRS to be enabled. It must have happened, I just must have missed it. So you'll fly through down towards Blanchimont corner. Almost a second. If DRS is enabled, which it should be now, I just don't think I caught it. I think there was a few penalties coming out, is why I missed it. We'll find out if it is now. It certainly is. DRS is enabled. Of course, Chuck's setting a fastest lap there. That's pretty obvious. And this is the first time today that the drivers have been able to drive in dry conditions as well. We're just over a third of the way through the race. And that gap now been extended again. It was almost down to a second. It's now back to that 1.5 seconds where we were at this point on the last lap. So Matthew now starting to feel comfortable on the dry tyre, and he's on the medium tyres as well, remember. The field, obviously, it's very much a given when you have these conditions as well. Once everyone pits and everyone's getting used to the new conditions, the field does spread out somewhat. We're lucky enough to see that the top 4, top 5 staying reasonably close together. As Lee Percival says the penalties are starting to rack up. And as you mentioned it, we'll have a look. 4 on 3 seconds, 2 on 6. Haven't seen any speeding in the pit lane penalties or anything to that matter, or severe corner cutting just yet. Of course, still got time for that to happen as well. Anyone else who's watching, who wants to see any stats, like what tyres they're on, if I haven't put them up on the screen for a little while, please speak up. Let me know what you want to see, and we'll put it on the screen. Paul Jones getting past Chuck this time. And this group at the back of the midfield, very, very close as well. And of course, with a lot of these guys on 3 seconds, they're all they have got things to play for, because everyone around them has got 3 seconds or close to them. So all hope is not lost for these guys yet, and they've still got a fight on their hands. 2.8 seconds now the lead. Matthew feeling very much at home, very comfortable here in Spa. it's definitely one of those tracks, once you get the flow of it, it just feels so nice to drive. There's a lot of straights where you can kind of feel like you have a bit of a break, but there's also that middle sector which is quite tough, and it's got some serious corners in there. And especially even, you've got to keep your wits about you, even at the end of the lap into the bus stop, because the bus stop isn't as easy as you would think. It's definitely tricky to get the first part right. It can be quite understeer heavy when you turn in. And like I said earlier on at the very start of the stream, this is where we are now, flat from turn 1 down to turn 6. Here comes Chuck. DRS open, very powerful here at Spa as well. And that was easy peasy lemon squeezy for Chuck in the Williams, as Bish gets himself a time penalty. That's his first one. And we've got 7 drivers now on penalties. Stevo on 9 seconds, struggling to keep it on the black stuff and keep it between those white lines. Here today is Laura Magin, I think, actually crossed over that white line as well, just taking a bit too much curb at the start of the Lake Com chicane. Down to Ravage. Super understeer heavy corner there, off camber, and it never feels like you get that corner right, ever. It feels like you've always left something on the table at Ravage. Just seeing how quick even these ground effect cars, when they're much heavier than they were in the older generations, just how quick they can dart from one direction to another. Just seeing them going to through one corner, which is such high speed. Such a high-speed section of the track. Oh, really, this whole racetrack is just high speed, blasting through the Ardennes forest. You don't get DRS down this back straight towards the bus stop because you've got curves in here like Blanchillon, makes it too dangerous, but I do feel like slipstream is very effective at this part of the racetrack, and you can certainly go for some moves into this corner here, as Liam has certainly messed up his braking zone there and had to use the side pod of the Haas to actually slow him down as the sun now starts to pop out of the clouds and bring some sunshine onto the Ardennes forest. Look at this battle for second place. And Chuckle now trying to send it on the inside of his brother. It was potentially, he was the last of the late breakers there. He's now going to try and go the long way round, which I think Chuck decided to back out of that and not to get involved, not to take too many high risks, and let his brother go through and take third place, as Morph and Liam still fighting here as they go into the Lake Com chicane. Oh, sorry, into Ravage. Sorry, a little bit further along the track than we were, into No Name Corner, and Morph is in 11th place, but of course Liam not got a time penalty as of yet, and hopefully for his sake he won't get one at all. So Ben Smith lighting up the timing screens at the moment, setting some personal best sectors on this lap. But he has got Bish behind him. Maybe that's the reason why he's got a bit of a wriggle on here on this 11th lap as we hit the halfway stage of the race, as Ross Northover gets himself a 3-second time penalty. And there's another one to the list. We've got 3, 6, 8 drivers, almost half the grid already, who have got time penalties. We're on lap 12 for 22. You're watching RTG TV. Make sure you keep subscribing to the channel. It is much appreciated. I haven't checked for a few days. Are we at 370 yet? If we aren't, if we're still on 369, come on, someone, let's have a little subscribe to the channel before the end of the race and get us to 370 if we aren't so already. And if we are, let's get ourselves to 371, 372, 373, something like that. And still seeing these overtakes happening towards the front for the battle for second. Obviously Matthew super comfortable out in the lead. Liam trying again to get past Morph. He does on the outside of Lake Com. All done. Or is it? Is Morph going to try it at Ravage? He definitely thought about it, but now has to sit back and follow the Alpine through this middle sector. Bish still biting at the heels of Ben T. Smith and making sure that his car is in the rear view mirrors fully, and that is all that Ben can see behind him. Down, is Ben there actually cuts over the grass. We've got a yellow flag here, that's for an Aston Martin. We've got a safety car deployed. Pro Live is out on the exit of Pouhon corner. That could change everything, and that could cause a chain reaction for drivers to potentially go on the soft tyres to the end, and if they're on hards, I'm sure they'll go to the mediums. Will we see softs towards the end? To the end? I think we could, actually. I think we're at a point now where they could last us to the very end. So as you can see, the majority of drivers are in the pits. A lot of them decided to go on to a fresh set of medium tyres, thinking that the SOS won't make the distance. Will the top 5 think the SOS will make the distance? They passed the pit entry when the safety car came out. They will still have an opportunity to pit and I think come out in their positions, as everyone's on a delta, and there's a ETA point at certain points of the track that they've got to stick to. So I believe until we cross the start finish line where they can gun it, they've got a few hundred meters where they can race these guys, but I think they will stay in the top 5. The order may get mixed up somewhat. Luckily for them as well, they're all on different teams. And the top 5 now enter the pits. Where is Super Striker? Just coming down towards the bus stop chicane. And Matthew deciding the soft tyres will go the distance. So is Mark, and I'm sure they'll all do the exact same thing. All going for the softs, the top 5s, apart from Chuckle actually, the only one that hasn't and thinks that the soft tyres will not go the distance. And there you go, they all come out back in their original positions with Super Striker. So close, but yet so far to making up a position. Welcome, anyone who is just joining us. There is a safety car deployed because Pro Live decided to bin the car, or I say he decided, I don't think he meant to do it, but decided to lose the car at the exit of Pouhon, which is meant we've had the first safety car of the day. We haven't had any kind of BSCs or safety cars today so far. So I believe my stats are right, which I hope they are, that the only full-time drivers to have won this season so far is Mark Bowe, who's won 1, and Chuck, who's won 3. And 2 other times reserves 1 out, and I know obviously one of them being Paul Jones last week. He's in second place as it stands. I was looking, I've given him a bit of disservice there. I actually looked right down the bottom there, so sorry, Paul. So the safety car won't be in this lap. I can guarantee that. Interesting to see, though, how long these softs will last in terms of their performance. I'm sure they will go to the end. But to be fair, we're going to get going again on lap 16. And I think other drivers may actually be kicking themselves that they didn't think to go to the softs themselves. I wonder if anyone will now decide that going on the softs may be the option now. I don't think anyone's deciding to make that call. So 100% safety car will be in this lap. Bootneck deciding the soft tyres are best for him now. I think he was right at the very back anyway, so really he didn't have a lot to lose, and potentially he's got a lot to gain from making this decision. Has got some time penalties as well, so just keep that in mind. I'm saying that, actually he's got a drive-through penalty, so he's going to have to serve that. So, I believe we'll get the safety car in at the end of this lap. We should get the safety car in, or be notified that it'll be in after Stabilo 1, which is just here. And then we've got all of this back straight for Matthew to prepare himself and the cars behind to get going once again. We can have 7 laps to go once we get started, or should I say restarted. And 7 laps for tyres that are pretty much brand new, soft tyres I mean. And Matthew actually goes incredibly early. He's already gone, and that could land some confusion for others. His Super Striker, I think he's been caught out somewhat by that early call from Matthew. We come out of the bus stop chicane and start lap 16 of 22. There's 7 laps to go, including this lap we're on now, around Les Sources, and now down the hill before we go rising up around 20 metres. Eau Rouge and Radion. Of course, we're not going to have DRS enabled for the first 2 laps after the safety car, as Little Majin here really trying to get past, is always grinding as well. He's thinking of a move as well. Is he going to dive to the inside on Little Majin as well? No, he isn't. He's just going to overtake Bish for now as we go around turn 2, sorry, we're well down the road from there. Go around Les Combes, as we see on the inside of Ravage. Bish trying to get the place back as he's now being under attack from Morph, who's been pushed off the road after making contact with him. He comes back on just ahead of Steve-O and actually blocks his path, which means Murph is going to seize on that opportunity. And it was a big opportunity, but a dangerous one to go up the inside of Pouhon Corner. He gets past now, but after Steve-O had left the track, and potentially Murph is gaining an advantage there whilst pushing Steve-O off the track. Is Matthew going to be able to gain the gap that he had previously, or is that gap that he worked so hard to build up all got lost under the safety car? Is that going to mean that it's going to be lost for the foreseeable, and he is going to be under attack from cars around him? He's just got over that 1 second window. Super Striker looking very racy at the moment, looking very quick, trying to get past Mark Bowe. The soft tyres not working well for Mark Bowe, actually, as he's been overtaken by a driver on the mediums. That was not in the script for him. Hopefully those soft tyres will come back to life for him, and he'll get a new lease of life and try and move up some places. Second in the championship at the moment, but a long way back from Chuck, who's in third place. Two reserves are in the top two spots at the moment. So Jay-Z getting close to Liam Ask. Now we'll go back to the penalties, refresh our memories on that one. Sorry, that was the hay fever issue. The Globe nose there after having a bit of a sneezing fit, so apologies for the silence. Paul now within 1 second of Matthew, who is certainly under threat this time around. And a lot of the time, if you've got good pace here in the middle sector, it's so hard to actually break away from drivers behind who have got such good pace. Can't call out of these three, potentially four. I know Chuckles only, he's not too far behind. He's still well within range. And as Lee Percival says in the comments, Jay's going to jump a huge, which he certainly will jump a huge amount of places if he if he doesn't get himself a time penalty. Bish getting past Little Majin here. Is Jay just going to sit back and wait for an opportunity to come to him? But Liam looking all over the road here, and arguably is being held up as they go through the first of the two Stabilo corners, and Jay-Z was actually going sideways on our camera angle there in the mid part of the first of the two Stabilo corners. So, as we go on to lap 19 of 22, we've got 4 laps to go, including this one. Paul Jones still within that DRS range of Matthew. He's not been able to extend the advantage he had previously when we had the intermediate conditions then to dry, when he called it right and stayed up 1 lap later than everyone else. Down the Camel Straight into the Lake Com chicane of the right, left, and then back to the right again. Make sure to keep it on the road and watch out for that gravel trap on the outside. There's the machine getting past Bish. And again, these two haven't given it up just yet, so we're going to have to keep an eye on them. It looks like Bish has got it sorted and sorted it out for himself and kept that 9th place for now. We've got a yellow flag. Who is that for? Not too sure. Obviously, we're going to keep our focus on the top 3 for the last 3 laps. We will have a look around at the rest of the field, but our main focus, not our sole focus, but our main focus will be on this top 3 and seeing who will see the checkered flag first. And there's a big old swabble going on at the final part of lap 19 at the bus stop chicane as Liam is moved up inside the top 10. Of course, you only get points in burnt rubber racing, the standard Formula 1 points for the top 10. As now Liam is under threat from Jay-Z after having a poor exit at Les Source. Not even concentrating on that. These 3 have all been fighting for position. We'll get back to them as Matthew has lost a place to Paul Jones, now lost a place to Chuck as well. He's lost 2 places in a couple of corners and is now certainly on the back foot as we see them go 3 wide down the Kemmel straight as Matthew left the session. He has indeed, and this could have gone horribly wrong, and the win is certainly just gone away from him. There's no doubt about that. I'll try and get him back in as quickly as I can. We sent him an invite. Hopefully he'll get back quickly. But now it's looking like a 2-horse race for the win with only 2 laps to go when we cross the line. And Liam is out of the race. I feel like we're at a later stage to have a safety car. And where has he lost the car? At the second Stavelot corner just here, but his car is already gone. And as I said, it's now a 2-horse race for the win as Matthew's still struggling to get back into the session, and he's going to tumble down the order. He's already down in 6th place. It's such a shame for the spectacle at the end, and it's a shame for him as well. So really now it's a fight between these two, our championship leader and a reserve who won last week's race in Brazil. One and a half laps left to go. Is Paul Jones just biding his time for the last lap? Really, on the last lap, a place like here, you do want to be in 2nd place. You want to have that slipstream down the Kemmel straight and go for a move at turn 5. We may also see a little bit of the DRS chicken come into play as well. Great helicopter shot here as Paul decides to hold back, bide his time and wait for the right moment, which surely is coming up. I wonder if Chuck is going to accidentally go a bit deep into the corner. No, he doesn't. He decides he doesn't want to have a game of chicken, a game of DRS chicken. He's just going to try and hope for the best as Paul Jones now starts ramping up the pace as we go up the hill, and the overtake button pressed, DRS open. He's been forced to the outside, but that's no problem as he breezes past down the back straight. The red light flashing on the back of that Williams, which means that he's in a position where he can't use too much battery anymore. He goes wide through the last part of the chicane into Ravage and now down to No Name Corner. And unless Paul Jones makes a bit of a mistake, Chuck is going to have to really see or want or have a miracle happen in the last few corners here. He's too far back, I think, for the slipstream to be effective enough into the final corner, the final two corners, should I say, of 19 and 20 at the bus stop. We go down through Blanchimont for the final time. And it's looking likely that as we go into the bus stop chicane, the driver who joined us last week is 2 out of 2 in Burnt Rubber Racing. Paul Jones wins the Belgian Grand Prix. Chuck comes home in second, picks up a very decent amount of points for his championship fight. Chuck will round out the podium. Super Striker will finish in fourth. Mark Bow will be bumped up to fifth place. Bootneck to cross the line. He moves up a couple of places. We've now just got to wait for Steve-O, who was quite a long way back for whatever reason. I didn't catch why he was so far back. As he makes his way around the last two corners now to see the checker flag finally. He crosses the line to finish 16th and last. And there you go, Paul Jones, our race winner for round 7. So that is your final order for today's race. Paul Jones makes it 2 out of 2 in Burnt Rubber Racing. Chuck finished second. Third was Chuckle. Super Striker finished in fourth. Mark Bow finished in fifth place. Ben T. Smith finished sixth. Always Grinding was seventh. Eighth was Jay-Z. Bish was ninth. 10th was Matthew. 11th was Little Majin. Murph was 12th. 13th was Ross Northover. Bootneck was 14th. 15th was Morph. Steve-O finished 16th. The only drivers not to finish today's race was Liam Esk and, I've done it again, I haven't done that for so long, Liam and Pro Live. So, where are we next week, guys? We are in Saudi for round 8 of 12, and if you're back tomorrow night to watch some more RTG TV content, well, we hope you are, we will be in Australia for round 8. Now, a couple of little things to note about RTG. It's not a 10-round season as per usual, it's a 13 round season. We've got a couple more races in May just to see out F1 23 before we go on to F1 24. Those will be Silverstone, Monza and Abu Dhabi to finish off that season for Thursday. There's 3 races for Monday extra as well. Spain, Imola and Miami for Monday. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Make sure to check back with us tomorrow night for GP2 with me and Lee. If you're not interested in that and you're just here for Burnt River Racing, no problem at all. But make sure you're back for next week's race in Saudi Arabia. Well, thanks very much for watching. Please keep subscribing to the channel. I hope when I have a look later we're on 370 subscribers. If not, go on, why don't you just click that button if you haven't done so already, and keep liking the video share the videos with your friends who like watching league races, if you want them to get involved in the leagues, RTG or Burnt Rubber Racing. Anyway, thank you very much. Until tomorrow, until next week, it's goodbye.